Dr. Alice Bennett stared at her computer screen, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The numbers didn't make sense. They should make sense. She had been studying deep space signals for 15 years. But these patterns broke every rule she knew. "Hey, Sam," she called out to her colleague, Dr. Samuel Carter, who was dozing in his chair nearby. "Take a look at this." Sam rolled his chair over, his tired eyes focusing on the stream of data. The monitoring station was quiet at 3 a.m., with only the hum of computers and the occasional beep from the sensors filling the air. "That can't be right," he muttered, reaching for his glasses. "The signal's coming from the Kuiper Belt." Alice nodded, pulling up another screen of readings. "Started about 4 hours ago. At first, I thought it was just background noise. But look at the pattern." The signal pulsed on the screen, a steady rhythm that seemed almost alive. It wasn't radio waves, or any other known form of communication. It was as if something out there was playing with the fabric of space itself. "We should call Commander Wright," Sam said, running his hands through his messy hair. Alice hesitated. Peter Wright was their military liaison, and calling him at this hour meant officially admitting they had found something strange. Once the military got involved, everything would change. But the signal made the choice for them. As they watched, it suddenly intensified, and 3 of their deep space probes in the Kuiper Belt went dark. Alice reached for the phone. Commander Peter Wright arrived at NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Station just as the sun was rising. He was a tall man with kind eyes that contrasted with his strict military bearing. The facility was already buzzing with activity as news of the signal spread through the scientific community. "Show me everything," he said, following Alice to the main control room. Alice pulled up the data on the main screen. The signal appeared at 23:47 last night. "It's unlike anything we've seen before. It's not using any known form of electromagnetic radiation. Instead, it seems to be creating tiny distortions in space-time." "English, please, Dr. Bennett," Wright said with a small smile. "Something out there is pinching space like it's a piece of fabric." Sam jumped in. "And when it does, our instruments pick up the ripples." Wright's smile faded. "And our probes." "Gone," Alice said quietly. "Not destroyed, just gone. As if they never existed. The signal touched them, and they vanished without a trace." The commander walked closer to the screen, studying the pulsing pattern. "Could it be a natural phenomenon?" "No." Alice's voice was firm. "The pattern is too regular, too precise. This is artificial. Someone or something is sending this signal." Just then, one of the junior scientists burst into the room. "Dr. Bennett, the signal, it's changing." They rushed to the main observatory. The massive wall of screens showed the signal's new behavior. The regular pulses had become more complex, forming patterns that seemed almost like language. "It's beautiful," Sam whispered. And it was. The ripples in space-time had taken on a dance-like quality, creating shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could process. But there was something else, something that made the hair on the back of Alice's neck stand up. "It's not random," she said, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she analyzed the new patterns. "These changes started exactly when we began studying it more closely. It's responding to our observations." Wright's hand went to his phone. "I need to make some calls. If this thing is aware of us—" "Wait," Sam interrupted. "Look at this." He pointed to one of the secondary screens. The quantum readings were going crazy. The space around Earth was changing in subtle ways, as if reality itself was being rewritten. "What's it doing to us?" Wright asked, his voice tense. Alice shook her head. "I don't think it's doing anything to us. Not yet. I think it's teaching us how to read its language. The changes in space-time, they're like a primer. It's showing us how to understand." As if confirming her words, the pattern shifted again. Numbers began appearing in their data streams. Simple mathematical sequences at first, then more complex equations. Universal constants. The speed of light. Planck's constant. It's establishing communication, Sam said, his voice filled with wonder. Using the fundamental laws of physics as a common language. Wright watched the numbers scroll past. Can you respond? Alice bit her lip. Maybe. We have some experimental quantum devices that might be able to create similar distortions in space-time. Very small ones, but maybe enough to be detected. Do it, Wright ordered. But be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Alice and Sam worked with their team to modify their quantum equipment, while Wright coordinated with military and civilian authorities. The world's greatest minds were being called in, all working to understand what was happening at the edge of our solar system. Finally, they were ready. Alice's hands shook slightly as she initiated their makeshift response system. They had decided to send back the same mathematical constants they had received, showing they understood. The effect was immediate. The signal changed again, but this time it was different. The patterns became more complex, more urgent, and embedded in them was something that made everyone in the room freeze. Images. Crystal clear images of something massive moving through the void between stars. Something that defied description, that seemed to exist in shapes that human eyes couldn't quite process. My God, Wright breathed. The images showed the entity, or entities, moving through space, reshaping reality around them. But they weren't random movements. They were heading somewhere. They were heading toward Earth. But the strange thing was, despite the cosmic horror of what they were seeing, none of them felt afraid. The images should have driven them mad with terror, but instead, they felt something else. Something like anticipation. They're not trying to hide what they are, Alice said slowly. They're showing us deliberately. Why? Sam was staring at another set of readings. Because they want us to be ready. Look at this. The quantum fluctuations around Earth. They're not random. They're changing us, changing our reality, but slowly, carefully. Changing us for what? Wright asked. Before anyone could answer, every screen in the facility lit up at once. The signal had intensified again, and this time the message was clear. Not in words, but in images and mathematical concepts that translated themselves in their minds. They were coming, but not as conquerors or destroyers. They were coming because they needed humanity, because somewhere in the dark between galaxies, something worse was stirring, and humanity had been chosen to help fight it. Alice looked at the commander. What do we do? Wright straightened his shoulders. We get ready. We learn everything we can, and we show them they chose right. The signal pulsed one final time, and in that pulse was a promise and a warning. Humanity was about to take its first step into a larger, stranger universe, and nothing would ever be the same. As the sun set on that first day, Alice stood at the facility's window, watching the stars come out. The signal continued its dance in space, reshaping reality one quantum at a time. Tomorrow, the world would know. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had always looked to the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer. They weren't alone, and they were about to become so much more than they ever dreamed possible. Linda Morrison sat at the head of the emergency meeting table, her face lit by the glow of multiple screens. As the head of global defense initiatives, she had seen her share of crises, but nothing like this. The changes were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. Dr. Hayes, please continue your report, she said, nodding to the tired-looking scientist at the other end of the table. Dr. Christopher Hayes stood up, his normally neat appearance showing signs of strain from days without proper rest. The changes in human DNA are accelerating, he said, clicking through his presentation. It started small, just tiny modifications that looked like normal mutations. But now, he paused, pulling up an image that made everyone in the room lean forward. The DNA strand on the screen was unlike anything they had ever seen. Parts of it seemed to shift and move as they watched, following patterns that matched the signal from space. "Our DNA is learning," he said simply. "It's rewriting itself, becoming something new. And the strange thing is, it's happening in exactly the same way in every person we've tested, regardless of age or location." Maria Ramirez, their AI systems specialist, raised her hand. "We're seeing similar patterns in our computer systems," she said, her voice carrying a mix of worry and excitement. "Every AI system connected to the internet is evolving. They're developing new algorithms that shouldn't be possible. Last night, our main quantum computer wrote a program in a language that doesn't exist yet, but somehow it works perfectly." Linda rubbed her temples. It had been 3 weeks since the signal was first detected, and each day brought new surprises. "What about the dreams?" she asked. Dr. Hayes clicked to a new slide. 90% of the population is now reporting the same dream. They see vast shapes moving through space, building something. And everyone says the same thing. "It feels like training." The room fell silent as security footage began playing on the main screen. It showed an ordinary office building in downtown Chicago. As they watched, every computer in the building turned on at exactly the same time. Lines of code flowed across their screens, but it wasn't any programming language anyone had ever seen. It looked more like the mathematical patterns from the signal. "This happened simultaneously in every major city," Maria explained. "Our AIs didn't just receive new information. They're being upgraded, and they're helping to upgrade us." A junior analyst burst into the room, his face pale. "Ma'am, you need to see this." They rushed to the monitoring center next door. Every screen showed the same thing. The signal had changed again. But this time, it wasn't just affecting computers and DNA. It was changing the physical world around them. "Look at the quantum readings," Dr. Hayes whispered. "The basic forces, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, they're all becoming more malleable." Linda watched as the numbers scrolled past. "Are we in danger?" "I don't think so," Maria said slowly. "The changes are controlled, precise. It's like we're being given an upgrade. Our bodies, our minds, our technology. Everything is being prepared for something." Just then, Dr. Hayes' phone buzzed. He read the message, his eyes widening. "It's happening. The first physical manifestations are appearing." The screen switched to live footage from a high school in Portland. A young student was standing in the middle of the basketball court, his hands raised. Around him, objects floated in the air, moving in perfect harmony. But the most striking thing was his eyes. They glowed with the same pattern they had seen in the signal. "His name is Kevin Parker," Dr. Hayes read from the report. 15 years old. "He says he can see the new laws of physics. Says they're beautiful." More reports started flooding in. A group of children in Mumbai who could communicate without speaking. An elderly man in Rio who could see through walls. A teenager in Tokyo who could process mathematical equations faster than a quantum computer. "It's not random," Maria said, studying the patterns. "These abilities, they're all focused on understanding and manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. Whatever is coming, these changes are preparing us to face it." Linda turned to her team. "What's our next move?" "We need to establish new protocols," Maria suggested. "These changes are going to reshape society completely. We need to help people understand what's happening, help them adapt." Dr. Hayes nodded. "And we need to learn as much as we can, as quickly as we can. Whatever's coming, it's coming soon." The screens flickered again, and new data poured in. The signal was teaching them something new, showing them images of vast structures in space, of energies that could reshape reality itself. And in every image, there was a sense of urgency. "Look at this," Maria said, pointing to a pattern in the data. "The AIs are translating it. It's a timeline." They all stared at the numbers. According to the signal, they had 6 months. 6 months to complete their transformation, to learn to use their new abilities, to prepare for whatever was coming. Linda stood up straight, her decision made. Contact every major government. Tell them we're initiating Protocol Omega. Full disclosure to the public. No more hiding what's happening. Are you sure? Dr. Hayes asked. The panic. There won't be panic, Linda said firmly. Look at the reports. People aren't afraid. They can feel it. Whatever this is, it's not here to hurt us. It's here to help us survive. As if in response to her words, every screen in the room lit up with the same image. A vast map of the galaxy, showing something moving through the darkness between the stars. Something that made the signal's entities look small in comparison. That's what's coming, Maria whispered. That's what we're being prepared to fight. The image zoomed in, showing details that made their minds struggle to comprehend what they were seeing. It was like looking at a cancer in reality itself, a thing that consumed not just matter and energy, but the laws of physics themselves. Send out the announcement, Linda ordered. Tell everyone the truth. Tell them that humanity is changing, evolving. Tell them that we're about to become something new, something stronger. As her team rushed to comply, Linda walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Already, she could see the changes. The way people moved with new purpose, the strange lights that sometimes flickered around them, the sense of anticipation in the air. Humanity had always dreamed of becoming something more. Now it was happening, not through centuries of slow evolution, but in one great leap. And somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, their teachers were watching, waiting to see if their chosen students would be ready in time. Linda smiled. They would be ready. They had to be. The greatest test in human history was coming, and failure wasn't an option. The awakening had begun. Officer Daniel Murphy was the first to see it happen in downtown Seattle. He had been walking his usual beat when he noticed a group of children playing in the park. At first, he thought they were just having fun with a new game, until he realized their feet weren't touching the ground. He called it in, his voice steady despite what he was seeing. Dispatch, we've got another group showing abilities. Corner of Pine and Fifth. Young ones this time. The dispatcher's response was calm. After 2 months of similar reports, this was becoming the new normal. Understood. Dr. Catherine Ross is en route with her team. Daniel watched as the children floated gently back to Earth, giggling. Their parents sat nearby, watching proudly. No fear, no panic, just acceptance and wonder. 15 minutes later, Dr. Ross arrived with her mobile research unit. She was younger than Daniel expected, with kind eyes and a tablet that seemed to float slightly above her hands as she worked. "Good morning, Officer Murphy," she said, smiling. "How many this time?" 5 kids. Ages looked to be between 8 and 12, he reported, showing gravity manipulation abilities, like the others. Catherine nodded, making notes on her floating tablet. Just like Andrew Phillips in Portland last week, the younger ones are adapting faster than the adults. Andrew Phillips had become something of a celebrity since his abilities first manifested. The teenager could now manipulate quantum fields as easily as others might catch a ball. He was helping scientists understand the changes happening to humanity, and more importantly, helping other young people cope with their new abilities. Catherine walked over to the children and their parents, her medical equipment hovering around her like obedient pets. The changes had affected technology too. Computers and machines now responded to human thought in ways that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Hello everyone," she said warmly. "Mind if I run a few quick scans?" The parents nodded, and Catherine's equipment went to work. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing complex DNA structures and energy patterns that twisted in impossible ways. "Amazing," she whispered. "The changes are accelerating." One of the children, a young girl with bright eyes, looked up at Catherine. "We can hear them now," she said simply. "The teachers in the sky." Catherine knelt down beside her. "What do they tell you?" "They show us pictures. Big things moving between the stars. They're building something, getting ready." The girl paused, her eyes distant. They're scared of something. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard about the shared dreams, the visions that were becoming more common, but hearing it from a child made it more real somehow. Just then, his radio crackled. "All units," he advised. "Global announcement in 5 minutes. All citizens are requested to tune in." Catherine checked her tablet. "It's time," she said quietly. "They're going to tell everyone." Across the city, screens lit up. Phones, computers, billboards, every display showed the same image. Linda Morrison, now the global coordinator for what they were calling the evolution, appeared before a simple background. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, her voice clear and strong. "3 months ago, we detected a signal from deep space. Since then, our world has changed in ways we never thought possible. Today, we can finally tell you why." The image changed, showing vast structures being built in space. The entities that had sent the signal were visible now. Enormous beings that shifted and changed as they moved, their forms beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "They are called the Shapers," Linda continued. "And they have chosen humanity for a purpose. The abilities appearing around the world, the changes to our technology, and our very DNA. These are not random. We are being prepared." The screen split, showing the thing that lurked in the darkness between galaxies. Even through a video feed, its wrongness made people shudder. "This is what comes," Linda said grimly. "The Shapers call it the Void Hunger. It doesn't just destroy worlds or civilizations. It devours reality itself. It has consumed countless galaxies, and now it's heading toward us." Catherine watched as her equipment registered the spike in psychic energy around them. Every person watching the announcement was feeling the same thing, not fear, but determination. "But we will not face this threat unprepared," Linda continued. "The Shapers are teaching us, changing us, making us stronger. Humanity will not be its victims. We will be its opponents, its equals, perhaps even its destroyers." The children in the park had stopped playing, their eyes fixed on the nearest screen. Daniel noticed they were floating again, but this time it seemed unconscious, as if their new abilities were responding to their emotions. "From this day forward, all restrictions on ability development are lifted," Linda announced. "Training centers are being established in every major city. If you have manifested abilities, or if you feel the change is beginning, help is available. We have 6 weeks until the final phase of our evolution begins. We must be ready." The announcement continued, but Catherine was distracted by her readings. The children's DNA was changing again, responding to Linda's words. No, not to the words, to something else, something vast and distant that was reaching out to touch their minds. "Officer Murphy," she called out softly, "look at the sky." Daniel looked up and gasped. Through gaps in the clouds he could see them, enormous shapes moving in space, visible even in daylight. The Shapers had decided to reveal themselves fully at last. One of the boys pointed upward. "They're happy," he said. "We're learning faster than they expected." Catherine checked her latest scans and blinked in surprise. "He's right. The rate of adaptation is increasing exponentially. These children—" She paused, searching for words. "They're becoming something new, something that's never existed before." "Are they still human?" Daniel asked quietly. Catherine watched as the children began to play again, their laughter echoing through the park as they danced in midair. "They're what humanity was always meant to become," she said. "We're not losing our humanity. We're finally growing into it." Above them, the Shapers continued their silent watch, their vast forms rippling with colors that human eyes were slowly learning to see. In labs and homes around the world, people were discovering new abilities every hour. Telepathy, telekinesis, the power to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Humanity was changing faster than anyone had predicted. But time was running out. Somewhere in the darkness, the Void Hunger was moving closer, drawn by the psychic light of a species in transformation. The race was on. Humanity had to complete its evolution before the destroyer arrived. As Daniel watched the children play, he felt the changes stirring in his own DNA. Something vast and strange was whispering in his mind, showing him wonders and terrors beyond imagination. And like everyone else on Earth, he knew that this was just the beginning. The evolution of humanity had begun, and there was no turning back. Elizabeth Ward stood in the ancient temple, her flashlight beam dancing across walls covered in strange symbols. As a government official in charge of historical research, she had visited many old sites, but this one was different. The carvings seemed to move in the dim light, almost like they were alive. "Professor Martinez," she called out, "I think you need to see this." John Martinez, their expert on ancient civilizations, hurried over. His eyes widened as he studied the wall. "These aren't like the other carvings we found. These are older, much older." Laura Collins, their psychic phenomena researcher, touched the wall gently. The moment her fingers made contact, her eyes began to glow with the now familiar blue light of activated abilities. "They're not carvings," she whispered. "They're memories." The temple, hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest, had been discovered just 3 days ago. But what made it special wasn't its age or location. It was the fact that it had appeared overnight, rising from the ground as if pushed up by an invisible hand. Laura's hand moved across the wall, and suddenly the air filled with holographic images. They watched in amazement as the story of Earth's past unfolded before them. "We weren't the first," Elizabeth said softly. "The Shapers have been here before." The images showed ancient civilizations rising and falling. Each time, the Shapers appeared, offering their gifts of evolution. Some accepted, others refused. Those who accepted change, becoming something more than human. Those who refused. The great extinctions, John breathed. They weren't natural disasters. They were the void hunger. More images appeared, showing battles that raged across the stars. Species that had accepted the Shapers' gifts fought against the cosmic horror that threatened to devour everything. Some won, some lost. Earth had seen it happen 5 times before. But why didn't they leave any clear warnings? Elizabeth wondered. Why hide this history in places like this? Laura's eyes glowed brighter. Because the warning had to be found at the right time. When we were ready to understand it. Look. The final set of images showed something that made them all step back. It was Earth, but not as it existed now. It was Earth as it could be, transformed into something that defied description, its entire surface covered in structures that merged biology and technology in impossible ways. "It's a blueprint," John realized. "They're not just changing us, they're changing the whole planet." Elizabeth's phone buzzed. Similar temples had been found in Egypt, China, and beneath the ice in Antarctica, all containing the same message, the same warning, the same blueprint. "We need to get this to Linda Morrison right away," Elizabeth said, already dialing the number. But before she could make the call, something new appeared on the walls. The symbols began to glow, and a new set of memories unfolded. They saw the truth about the void hunger, what it really was, where it came from. It wasn't just a cosmic horror that devoured reality. It was reality's response to something even worse. "It's an immune system," Laura whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The universe itself is alive, and the void hunger is its way of fighting infection. But it's gone wrong, become too powerful, too hungry." John stepped closer to the images, and the Shapers. They were the first to find a way to fight back. Elizabeth understood. Not by destroying the void hunger, but by changing reality itself, making it stronger, more resilient. The walls showed more, the grand plan that had been in motion for billions of years. Countless species across the universe, all being uplifted, all being prepared. Each one different, each one unique, but all part of the same defense. "Earth isn't just another battlefield," Laura said, reading the ancient memories. "It's going to be something special. A nexus point. A place where the changes to reality will be anchored." Suddenly, the ground began to shake, not with destruction, but with purpose. Across the planet, more temples were rising, each one carrying another piece of the plan. Elizabeth's phone rang. It was Linda Morrison. "Are you seeing this?" Linda asked without preamble. "The changes are accelerating. The Shapers say we're ahead of schedule. The children, they're already starting to understand how to reshape reality." "Linda," Elizabeth said urgently, "we found something. The void hunger, the Shapers, all of it. It's all part of something bigger. The universe itself is alive, and we're about to become its defenders." There was a pause on the other end. "Tell me everything." As Elizabeth explained what they had discovered, more images appeared on the temple walls. They showed the final stage of human evolution, what the children would become, what all of humanity would transform into. It was beautiful and terrifying, glorious and strange. "The temples," John said suddenly, "they're not just showing us the past. They're changing the present. Look." The walls of the temple were dissolving, transforming into something new. The stone became living crystal, pulsing with energy that connected to similar transformations happening around the world. Laura touched one of the crystals, and her mind filled with understanding. "These are anchor points," she explained. "When the final change comes, they'll help stabilize reality itself. Without them, the transformation would tear the planet apart." Elizabeth watched as the crystal spread, beautiful and impossible. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Laura answered, her eyes still glowing. "The void hunger has sensed what's happening. It's coming faster now. We have days, maybe hours." But none of them felt afraid. The ancient memories had shown them the truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the life of the universe itself, and they weren't fighting alone. Above them, visible even through the thick jungle canopy, the Shapers moved in complex patterns, preparing for the final stage. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential, with the promise of what was to come. Elizabeth looked at her team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "Let's get to work. The world needs to know what we found here." As they hurried from the transformed temple, the crystal structures continued to grow, reaching toward the sky like the first roots of a new kind of reality. The final revelation had been made. Humanity wasn't just changing. They were becoming the change that reality itself needed to survive. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the void hunger sensed its doom approaching. Ryan Baker stood at the military command center, watching as the world changed around him. As a military strategist, he had planned for every kind of war imaginable, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The final transformation had begun. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the incredible scenes playing out on the screens before him. Dr. Jennifer Adams looked up from her quantum consciousness monitoring station, her eyes glowing with the same blue light that now shone from every human on Earth. "The collective consciousness is stabilizing. We're all connected now, all part of the same network." "The children?" Ryan asked. "Leading the way," Jennifer replied. "They adapted faster than anyone expected. They're teaching the adults how to use the new abilities." Paul Harrison, once their biggest skeptic and now their most skilled psychic coordinator, stepped forward. The air around him rippled with barely contained energy. "The void hunger will be here in less than an hour. But we're ready." The command center's walls had transformed into living crystal, like all other structures on Earth. The planet itself was changing, becoming something new, a fortress of reality, a bastion against the cosmic horror that sought to devour everything. Above them, the Shapers moved in complex patterns, their vast forms now fully visible to human eyes. They weren't just watching anymore. They were working alongside humanity, teaching until the very last moment. "Look," Jennifer pointed to one of the screens. They watched as a group of children in Central Park floated above the crystalline ground, their hands moving in perfect sync. Reality itself bent around them, forming structures that shouldn't be possible, defenses against the coming storm. They're not just changing reality, Paul said softly. They're strengthening it, making it immune to the void hunger's power. Ryan checked the global status display. Similar scenes were playing out all over the world. Humanity had become something new, something that existed in more dimensions than their old forms could perceive. Yet they hadn't lost their humanity. They had expanded it, grown into what they were always meant to be. Suddenly, all the alarms went off at once. "It's here," Jennifer whispered. The screen showed it. A darkness between the stars, a hole in reality itself that moved with terrible purpose. The void hunger had arrived, drawn by the light of humanity's transformation. But Earth was ready. Ryan pressed the global communication button. His thoughts reached every mind on the planet instantly. "This is it, everyone. Remember your training. Remember what we are now. Remember what we're fighting for." The response was immediate. Billions of minds joined together, their combined power reshaping reality around the planet. The crystalline structures that covered Earth's surface began to glow with impossible colors. The void hunger struck first, sending tendrils of unreality toward the planet. But where they touched the new defenses, they found something they had never encountered before. Reality that fought back. "Now," Ryan commanded. Children around the world raised their hands to the sky, their parents and teachers joining them. The knowledge the Shapers had given them, combined with humanity's unique creativity and determination, created something entirely new. The air itself seemed to crystallize, forming layers of reinforced reality. The void hunger's attacks slid off, unable to get purchase on a universe that refused to be devoured. "We're not just defending," Paul realized, watching the patterns of power flow around the planet. "We're healing reality itself, like antibodies fighting an infection." He was right. Everywhere the void hunger touched, humanity's new power didn't just resist. It restored. Reality became stronger, more resilient. The cosmic horror found itself fighting against an enemy it couldn't simply consume. Jennifer's monitors showed the collective consciousness growing stronger. Everyone's connected now. Not just to each other, but to reality itself. We can feel the universe living, breathing. The void hunger, sensing its danger, gathered itself for one massive attack. The darkness between the stars grew deeper, colder, more absolute. Ryan's voice rang out again in every mind. "Hold steady. We are Earth's children, and we will not fall." The attack came like a tsunami of unreality, threatening to erase everything in its path. But humanity was ready. Every person on Earth, from the youngest child to the oldest adult, reached out with their new powers. The Shapers moved to join them, their vast forms merging with the defenses humanity had created. Together, they created something that had never existed before. A wall of pure, living reality that not only stopped the void hunger's attack, but began to push it back. "It's working," Jennifer shouted. "The void hunger, it's retreating." But they weren't finished. As the cosmic horror tried to pull back, humanity pushed forward. The crystalline structures that covered Earth pulsed with power, sending waves of healing energy into space. The children led the way, their minds unfettered by old limitations. They could see the patterns that made up reality itself, and they began to repair them, strengthen them, make them resistant to the void hunger's power. "We're not just defending Earth," Paul said in awe. "We're changing the rules of reality itself, making it stronger, more resilient, just like the Shapers taught us." The void hunger, for the first time in its ancient existence, knew fear. It tried to flee, but humanity's power followed it, healing the scars it had left in reality, closing the holes it had made in the universe. Ryan watched as the screen showed the cosmic horror growing smaller, weaker, until finally it was gone. Not destroyed, but transformed, changed into something that would help protect reality rather than consume it. The silence that followed was profound. Jennifer checked her readings. Everyone's okay. The transformation held. We did it. Around the world, people began to laugh and cry, their joy echoing through the collective consciousness. The crystal structures that covered Earth pulsed with warm light, reflecting their emotions. The Shapers moved closer to Earth, their vast forms rippling with what felt like pride. They had chosen well. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had exceeded all expectations. Ryan looked out at the transformed world. The cities had become beautiful crystalline structures that merged seamlessly with nature. The sky was filled with new colors that their evolved eyes could now see, and every human being glowed with the power to protect and heal reality itself. "What now?" Paul asked softly. Jennifer smiled, her eyes seeing far beyond the command center. "Now we help others. There are more worlds out there, more species that will need to evolve to face their own challenges. We're not just Earth's children anymore. We're reality's defenders." The Shapers sent one final message before they departed, not of goodbye, but of welcome. Humanity had joined them as guardians of reality itself. The student had become an equal. Ryan looked at his team, seeing the same wonder and determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. "Well," he said with a smile, "we've got work to do." Above them, the healed universe sparkled with new possibility. Earth had become a beacon of hope, a place where reality itself had been made stronger. And its children, once so small and limited, had become something magnificent. The new cosmic horror wasn't something to fear anymore. It was what they had become. Protectors of reality, guardians of existence, the thing that nightmares feared. And this was just the beginning.